Good morning, world. It is Tuesday and just a little past 7 a.m. Day 2 of, I guess, vlogging every day. Finished editing the video around 3 or 4 in the morning. Got Charlie to sleep at 9. Was hoping to get to editing it right away. Didn't wake up till like 11:30 p.m. and then worked on it for like 4 hours. Still have to upload it and get it to working. This is kind of crazy. I'm not really sure I'm going to be able to do this every day. There just kind of isn't enough hours in the day between playing, recounting the hands, editing it, and taking care of the little guy. What do you think, Charlie? Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi. Can you say good morning? What are you doing over here?
I'm in my...
You're playing with your cars. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, and I've got a dentist appointment today at 10 a.m. So we're gonna try to get the vlog finished up on YouTube in a couple of hours. And then the dentist appointment, well, getting Charlie to school first, the dentist appointment, and then back to the casino to put in another sesh. Today it'll probably be a bit shorter because I won't get there until like 11 something. But yeah, hopefully we can keep this going. Alright guys, peace. Charlie, can you say peace?
Peace.
Say peace.
Peace.
Okay, that works. Part about living in San Francisco, you can walk everywhere. Walking to the dentist, which is only a couple blocks from my place, so gonna get that out the way and get one of 2 annual checkups, and then we're gonna head to the casino. Catch you guys there. You trappy trappers, check. Dreary San Francisco weather. We're actually in like South San Francisco, but nonetheless, dreary weather, as can often be the case around here. Anyway, nice, pretty short session. I think I played about 4 hours, 5 hours maybe, and just ran good. Everything kind of went well. About to detail everything. Left a little early so I can get to detailing the hands, as well as grabbing some lunch elsewhere outside the casino. I eat there a lot. The food is average at best would be a nice way of putting it. So I'm gonna try to go get some, maybe Chipotle, something like that, and recount some hands. Tried doing some hand histories from inside Chipotle. Didn't work. Music was too loud. We're gonna have to do it from the car a few episodes ago. Let's get into the first hand, which happens actually fairly early on in the session. Under the gun opens at 20. Next to act calls 20. The button calls 20. I'm in the small blind with pocket 8s. I think this is a pretty clear just call. Not going to be 3-betting the other gun's open and obviously not folding. So I call and we go 4 ways to a flop, which comes 10, 7, 3, 2 hearts and a spade. I check. The under the gun opener checks. Looks like he's kind of done with the hand. Like he just has like, you know, maybe ace high. The very next to act bets 30 into 80, which is a pretty small bet. The button calls. And in this spot, I think I'm likely to have the best hand here. I think a 10 is going to bet a little bit larger on this flop. At the same time, check raising here, I think, is just overplaying my hand. It is a pretty wet board, so flush draws are probably going to continue in position, and there's just not too many turn cards that I'm going to really love. So I just call. Similarly, I don't have the 8 of hearts, so that's, I think, a pretty important part in this hand, because if I do happen to turn a set, I'm half as likely to, or rather, my outs are clean. I can't hit the 8 of hearts because it is in my hand. And then the preflop opener folds. The turn is a jack now, so 8-9 gets there, which I obviously block. I check. It is the jack of spades, so now it's 2 hearts, 2 spades. I check, and the guy who bet the flop now bets 40. The button calls again, and here I think we find ourselves with a decision point in the hands. I'm not going to be folding, obviously, because a 9 can make me the best hand. Similarly, I think I could still have the best hand. On the flop, I thought it was quite likely I could have the best hand. On the turn, it seems a little less likely now that someone's bet again. But to me, what actually feels like the most likely scenario is that the guy that bet the flop has a hand like queen 10, maybe king 10, trying to see where he's at, doesn't want to check. So he's playing about like 350, something like that. And my decision again, I think, is whether I should be calling or check raising to just put him in a decision for his stack. And I like, since I sense weakness here, I think I just like taking the aggressive action. Also, he's got a player to act behind him, so I can put him in kind of a pretty bad spot if I raise, because he still has to worry that the guy behind him has a better hand than he does. I end up making it 240. I think I should go a little bit larger. It's essentially putting him into a decision, an all-in decision. But if he does have some draw, he can call and basically save his remaining like $100 if he misses. So I think I should be making it a little bit larger, or essentially just putting him all in if I'm going to be check raising. Anyway, so I make it 240. He folds and the player behind him folds, so we scoop that one. In the next hand, I'm in the big blind with 8-7 offsuit. It's a limp pot, maybe like 6 or 7 ways. And the flop comes 8-8-6 with 2 diamonds. Small blind checks, I check, and then under the gun checks, under the gun +1, who's probably one of the better players, if not the best player out of the remaining opponents in the game. He's a winning player, plays it regularly. He ends up betting 20 into 30. It folds to me. I could check raise here, but I like just calling, keep my range wide, as well as his own. I think he's likely to have just like an overpair here and possibly 9s, 10s. Although he's very likely to be opening those pre-flop just based on how he plays regularly, which actually makes me reanalyze his hand. Anyway, so he ends up betting 20 to 30. I just call. The under the gun player folds. The turn is an offsuit 4, 5-7 gets there, and I thought he's just going to be checking back here a lot because I'm going to be having an 8 quite often. So I decided to lead into him because I think it's going to go check too often, and I want to get value from just kind of his flush draws and just, you know, worse hands like a 6, the open ender 9-7, as well as possibly over pairs like 9s and 10s. So I lead for 45, and he now makes it 125. I wasn't really expecting this. At the same time, I don't expect him to be raising me here with a flush draw, so I think it's way more likely, A, that he either has an 8, which I don't beat too many 8s, has 7-5 for a straight, or is possibly turning some like combo draw like 9-7 of diamonds into a bluff. Anyway, I call. The river is an offsuit 9. I check, and now he bets 215. At this point, I just don't think he's bluffing. So I think that he's value betting. And as far as value bets are concerned, I just don't really beat anything. Originally, I thought that because he had limped early, he could have a hand like 9s or 10s or jacks. But now that I think about it, he's pretty aggressive with his made hands. So I think he's just very, very likely to be opening these himself. So I think that he often is going to have like an 8 here, maybe ace-8 suited, 10-8 suited, king-8 suited, 8-9, as well as the 7-5 for the turn straight. So I just think that because I feel like he is value betting, there's really nothing that I beat in his value bet range except like 8-5. And I just don't think that he's going to be going for value here with 8-5. I fold pretty confidently. After the hand, the small blind goes, oh, actually I added in the small blind, so he wasn't in the hand, but the small blind says, oh man, I wish I'd called the extra 2, I had 10-7, which would have been the nut straight by the river. Obviously, I don't think he's getting to the river. But the other player says that was good, and I kind of believe him. So I was a little bit surprised because I was trying to think of what his value hands are that are raising turn and still betting river. But given how kind of aggressive he is, I think he's going to take these lines with all of his good 8s, like ace-8, as well as his straight draw, the 7-5, that gets her on the turn. This next hand is probably the hand of the session, and I think obviously a big part of why I ended up winning. There are a couple of limpers. A player that I play with fairly often makes it 30. He does do some goofy things, overplays some hands, but similarly, like, he's not just a complete crazy spaz. Now I might want to take that back. He does spaz every once in a while. But anyway, he makes it 30, and I have ace-king suited. I do kind of feel like he has a strong hand here, but a strong hand for this guy doesn't necessarily have to mean like queens plus. And so I want to isolate. I don't really want to go like multi with ace-king suited, which I think is going to often happen here when he opens after a bunch of limpers. So I isolate to 110, folds to the player to his immediate right, who goes into the tank, and he ends up folding, which I think is really interesting. So it feels like maybe he limps some like pocket pair, like, I don't know, some 7s, 8s, something like that. Or maybe himself has like ace-queen suited. Anyway, the player who had opened calls fairly quickly. I think I've kind of capped his range to maybe some ace kings. There's a similar hand I played against him where I played almost the same, where he opened, I 3-bet, he calls with ace king. I think we both flop a king and played kind of a small medium-ish pot. So it feels like he could have ace king or something like, you know, sevens through jacks. I think if he has queens plus, he's just always going to get it in here. He has a $700 stack. Similarly, when I 3-bet him pre-flop, I was willing to get it in for 700 specifically against him, because I have seen him spaz out before with like small pocket pairs and maybe like ace queen, ace jack suited. So I'm willing to flip in the size against him. I think it kind of also sets up a dynamic going forward to kind of let him know that, you know, I am willing to get it in, and I don't really want him like jamming on me light. So anyway, the flop comes 9-9-8 with 2 hearts. He checks, and I want to continue the story that I have an overpair. Generally in these spots, I kind of take the less aggressive action. I try to lower my variance post-flop in spots where I think someone might have an overpair, and I just want to like minimize variance because I know that I can outplay most people post-flop. So I'm not really trying to get too crazy post-flop in hands where I have like ace high and I feel like the guy might have an overpair. That being said, I have seen him fold before to me when he has like 10s on like some like small undercard board, and I've 3-bet him pre-flop. So I think checking back here is a mistake. I don't want to just give up because it's going to be very obvious I have ace king high. And now he himself, if he has like ace queen or ace king, can lead into me on the turn, and I don't think there's much I can do but fold. So I bet 140, and he calls really quickly, which leads me to believe that it is very likely that he has a hand like jacks or 10s. The turn is a 7 of hearts, so the flush gets there. He goes in the tank and he checks, and when he goes in the tank and checks, I just don't really think he ever has a hand like turning a flush. As I said, I still think he has a hand like jacks or 10s, which, going back, thinking about it, might lead me to check back this turn because he might not fold jacks or 10s, as those now pick up equity for a straight draw. But I don't love checking back here. I think I'm just going to end up losing this pot a lot, and taking one stab here, he's going to call a lot and fold in the turn. At the time, I thought he had about 400, so I decided to essentially put him to an all-in decision. I bet 360. Turns out he had a little closer to 500. As soon as I bet 360, he like snap calls me, and that's when I realized he actually has about like 130 left, 140 left, something like that. Obviously, it really sucks because it just seems like he's just not folding here, and I'm never ahead. River is a black king, saving grace. Feels like now I actually have a chance of having the best hand because I think if he had a flush, he'd be jamming the turn. Anyway, he now jams into me, his remaining like 140 whatever. I call, he's like, good call, and he rolls over pocket 10s. I turn my hand over, and he's like, oh yeah, I knew you had ace king high, and kind of goes off from tirade. I don't have anything to say because obviously I got really lucky. At the same time, though, I think the way he's playing this hand for like 150 big blinds is a really big mistake. It's just not very often I'm going to be going off here for 150 big blinds and not have pocket 10s beat. So if his plan going forward against me in 3-bet pots is to stack off whenever he flops an overpair on these types of boards, he's just not going to do very well. So obviously I got really lucky, and I'm happy I got lucky, but I really don't like his call down here unless he just has like some soul read, which obviously he claims to have had. And now that brings us to our last hand. He had just jammed pocket 3s against a guy who had 3-bet him. The guy who 3-bets him snaps off with ace jack. The flop comes jack high, turns a 3. So they got it all in pre-flop. Ace jack versus pocket 3s for like 600 or 700 a piece, maybe even more, like 750, 800. It seems like, you know, obviously after losing that hand versus me, he's kind of like tilting. And I've noticed that, like, whenever he starts losing, this guy tilts and tilts hard. So he limps. I have 9-8 off. I want to play hands against him now that he's won the pot. He's got like 12 or 1300. And I generally would isolate here, but I don't want to isolate because, like I said, he's tilting. He might be limp re-raising. I don't want to get too crazy. I'd rather make a big hand versus him post-flop and just have him play really poorly, as opposed to trying to isolate him and build some big pot where I think he's going to be playing super aggressive because he's tilting. So I limp, the button limps, and now the big blind makes it 40. He calls. The big blind's really deep. I'm really deep. The caller's really deep, so I call in position, and the button calls as well. The flop comes 10-5-5, rainbow. It goes check, check. Feels a lot like the big blind has ace king high. I bet 85. My plan is to go multi-streets here, trying to rep a 5. Kind of continue the story of like betting small. So I bet 85. The button folds, and now the big blind kind of snap calls. And whenever I see this, it seems just, it's like a big tell that someone, you know, wants to stop you from betting, to continue. They want to seem much stronger than they really are. So it kind of continues, making me believe that he has a hand like ace king, maybe he has like 9s, 8s. The player in between folds. And I kind of jokingly say to him, like, oh, like, is this you snap calling trying to get me to not bet anymore going forward? Or do you actually have a hand? And he's just like, yes. The turn is a brick. I don't pick up any additional equity. I think it's like a 4 or something like that. And I kind of look at him, his demeanor, who he is. It's possible he has a hand like Jack's and he's trying to like pot control. I just get this read that he's not in a folding mood. And so I decide to basically give up on the hand. I think if I'm going to be betting here, I have to bet 200. If I'm betting 200, I have to bet the river as well if he does call. I guess I could take 1 stab here, but I'm not a fan of just like taking 2 stabs and giving up on the river. And like I said, looking at this opponent, I just didn't think he was in a folding mood. So I end up checking back, basically giving up. River is a queen. And now he thinks for a bit, kind of like grabs some chips, thinks, and ends up leading for me in a 200, which I think is really interesting because I still feel like he has ace-king. You find oftentimes a lot of players who just kind of don't know what they're doing will end up betting when they think they don't have the best hand. Like, let's say he has ace-queen, I think he's very likely to actually check to look to check call. But because he has ace-high and is worried that I might end up having like the best hand, he feels compelled to bet. And you just see this a lot where people have no idea how to value bet their own hands. Like, let's say he has 2 jacks or something like that. They have no idea how to value bet. Instead, they just tend to bluff way more than they value bet. So I kind of go into tank thinking about if I can get out of line here, rip it on him, and get him to fold what it feels like ace-king. I end up just thinking better of it. I've told myself I want to stop trying to bluff raise rivers. It's just a big leak I've had in my game where I think people might be value betting, and I try to get them to fold like weak-made hands. So anyway, I give up. I tank for a bit and fold. And he shows up with ace-king high, kind of, I don't know if he's trying to like rub it in my face, is his high, if he thinks I had a pair possibly or a 10. But, you know, kudos to him and his cute little snap call on the flop to get me to slow down and give up on the flop, give up on the pop post-flop. That then brings us to this final hand, which I actually recorded a little bit of, just in a straddle pot. I open with pocket queens, get 1 caller.
Last call for Kevin D. Go 1-2. John M. John M. Go 1-2. John M. Go to table 20.
And end up flopping a 6-6 deuce board. I see bet and he folds, and that pretty much that actually was the very last hand of my session. Everything else other than that that big pot I played was kind of smooth sailing. A lot of just like opening, pre-flop, flopping top pair, betting in position, winning the hand, or calling multi-way, and then one check 2 betting and winning a pot. I just picked up a lot of small pots. I ended up winning 1,293, which is awesome. Obviously, if I end up losing that hand, ace-king versus 10s, that would have essentially been the profit, because we've got the 360 plus the 140s 500 plus the pre-flop 3-bet 600, that's 1,200. So that's essentially, you know, if we lose that hand, we're break even. So it kind of goes both ways. Obviously, got really lucky to hit there. Feels nice to be getting lucky in these big pots, as people have been getting vice versa lucky versus me. But you know, it is what it is. I'm really excited about making these vlogs every day. I've been watching a lot of stuff on YouTube as of late. I love YouTube. I love the content that other people put out on YouTube. So I think this is really exciting. I'm like motivated to keep putting stuff out. I just kind of love the interaction with viewers. So I'm really happy you guys are enjoying it. Let me know if there's stuff you like, don't like. You know, we can kind of work through it. But I'm loving kind of putting these out daily. So hopefully we can keep doing that. Actually, and one more shout out to Jim, who has pocket queens. You can see in the screenshot for this vlog. Somebody ended up opening a 20, couple callers. I called pocket 7s. He now makes like 110, I think. Everybody folds to me. And out of position, I'm obviously not going to be calling, try to flop a set. We weren't, I think he had like 600 or 700, not really getting the odds to be calling here to try to flop a set. So I folded, took a photo, and that's when he showed me the pocket queen. So that was caught in the picture. Really cool guy, had a great time talking to him through the session. And similarly, also wanted to give a shout out to Ricky, who's crypto poker chips I've been kind of showing off at the table. They've been super lucky for me. I've been running really well, so that's really cool. Check out his Etsy shop. I'll have a link in the description. All right, thanks guys for checking everything out.
Only one.
Charlie, are you watching live at the bike?
Huh?
Are you watching live at the bike?
We're gonna have a 5-way flop here at St.